Tech, and I shall be talking about how Australia should improve the NBN. So the NBN is the technology for the internet in Australia, the National Broadband Network. But before we continue, all opinions are my own. No one's sponsoring me for this video, all opinions are my own. I'm doing this for a uni project or assignment, so once this is done, it will be uploaded so my teachers can view it and mark me. So let's continue, and I shall talk about the NBN. The NBN is Australia's national broadband network, and it was supposed to revolutionise Australian internet. It was and has replaced the old ADSL, DSL, copper and dial-up internet, but sadly it didn't revolutionise Australian internet. In some cases it's been slow and unreliable. So for example, with the internet in Australia, my old internet was, I think, an old ADSL connection with Telstra, and I was getting about 100 megabits down, maybe 20 or 30 up. But over the NBN, it has dropped to 50. We're paying more, and it's been more unreliable, and it cuts in and out, and we just get frequent dropouts, which is really terrible. And it's just an abysmal connection. And also, how it works is that there's a fibre connection from your internet provider, service provider, to the NBN node in the street, which looks like the box in the image. And then from there, it's copper cabling to each and every home. But in some cases, it might be fibre to the premise if you're in a lucky case. But in my house, it's copper, not fibre. So copper cabling. And copper cabling was installed. Some of the original cabling was before World War II, and that cabling is primarily designed for landline phones. Yeah. The way Australian government can fix this is by installing fibre to each and every house, especially the ones which have been most affected. But in some cases you don't need fibre, as you might be a person who just does a couple of emails a day, looks at web pages, you don't need much. The Australian government can also install 5G and LTE, like this phone supports 5G, where fibre is not possible to install, but this can cost a lot of money, but it'll be better in the long run. The downside of all this is some crazy people around the world claim 5G and LTE can give you cancer or COVID-19, which is completely false and can be problematic for local governments, even national governments. And also people have been installing these various 5G towers, maybe sub-6 or millimetre wave 5G. Some people can claim it causes cancer, as I mentioned. Some areas can be too remote for fibre, so this is why LTE or 5G is an option. But even then, 5G needs fibre to the tower itself. Also, politicians might claim this and that. Also, sometimes governments take shortcuts, like how we have the fibre to the node or hybrid fibre connection. So that's the copper cabling to my house instead of full fibre to the premise. Also, I've experienced this. There's been too much traffic to the house, and the thing just crashes and cuts out. I've had this as well with an old router. The thing couldn't handle the amount of traffic I was doing on the local network. The thing would just crash and reboot. In the end, I replaced it. That seems to be pretty good. Alright, some of the old pre-NBN sort of plans. So in the early 2000s, Australian internet service providers like Telstra proposed their internet upgrade plans for Australia. So this was fibre to every home, but it was only in the major cities, and this would only be available if you're a Telstra customer. So if, let's say, I'm with Telstra, I would have got access to this, but if I decide to switch to someone else like, I don't know, Optus or iiNet, I'll be using different cabling, so I wouldn't have this technology. And the Australian government didn't like this, as it was only available in major cities and not every service provider had access to this, so they said no, we're not allowing this. But if it was available to every service provider and was pretty much around the whole country, including regional towns, they may have accepted it. In the end, this plan didn't come alive, and it was just a proposed plan which never happened. Also, with the NBN, your location can be affected. So the further you're away from the NBN node, which is that box in the street, the slower your connection is. So with, for example, a standard network cable, the further away you are, the slower it is, but that only is usually over 100 meters. But with the NBN, the further away you are, the slower it is. As for example, if you're getting 25 megabits down, it can be because of the distance, because I've heard of people who have been paying for 50 or 100 down, and they've been only getting 25 or thereabouts. So in the end, they said, stuff this, we're getting a cheaper plan or slower plan because it's just not worth it. And Australia is a large country, so implementing fibre costs a lot, and it'll be a lot more mileage to implement compared to European nations or even Australia's neighbouring country, New Zealand, where it's easier and cheaper to install fibre because it's just geographically smaller or more dense. Some NBN alternatives can include as 5G and LTE, as I mentioned, but also Starlink and SpaceX, Starlink and Amazon Jupiter. So what this is a satellite dish on top of your house, and then what happens is, from your satellite, you have the connection to your house, but it will send signals into space, satellites in space, and then back down to a base station nearby your location. So this is really great for regional towns where they've got poor connection, like a farm out in the middle of nowhere, or you've got poor connection. This is great, but the downside to all this, it doesn't give an exact location with the Starlink and Amazon Jupiter, and it's in beta testing, development. And some parts of Australia does have this available, so if you want to check it out, you can look it up. Also, with the NBN and stuff, our world rankings isn't very good. So currently we're 61 in the world for internet speed rankings, according to Ookla, which isn't great because other major countries, including New Zealand, the US, lots of European nations, the US, UK, are a lot faster than Australia. Even New Zealand, who's our neighbouring country, is 23rd in the world. This is terrible, as we need to improve our internet and speed rankings. Alright, so now I'm on my phone, so what I'm going to do is a speed test to show my rankings. So in a lot of European nations, I might get 200, 300, 400, I've even 700 down overseas. But if I do a speed test, I'm getting 50 down, which is the speed I'm paying for. But the maximum I've seen in my home, in my area, is only 100 down. And upload isn't great. As we can tell, we're getting 18 megabits down, about 19 down. So how does the world view Australia's internet? Before first notifications or indications about COVID-19 over in Wuhan, China, I had a friend, so mum's old friend's son from Switzerland, stayed over for a week in Australia as he was taking a holiday in Australia, kind of like a gap year. And he came up to me saying, why is your internet slower than my internet in Switzerland, Zurich, Switzerland? And I said Australia's internet isn't as good as Europe internet. Our rankings are high, and we're paying for this speed down. And we said the price, and he said, "Oh, this isn't right, because I'm paying for less, and we're paying less, and we're getting faster internet." and I just said, that's Australia, that's how Europe is, and Australia costs a lot more, and we're overpriced here as well. Also, some experience I've had, many years ago, I went overseas on a holiday to the United States, and I took my laptop. It was an old 5th gen i5 laptop from Acer. It was a not bad machine, and I said to myself, oh, when I come back, I'll go to the local technology store and upgrade with a Wi-Fi card, a new one, but I might get better networking speeds. But when I was over there, I noticed, that's odd. Why is all my files uploading quicker than home? Then I realized it's not the card. It's my home internet, and it's my country, how we've had bad connections. So I was getting about 500 megabits down, 300 megabits upload, which is just insane. But also, another time is when I was overseas. I was taking a cruise around Asia, and my mum said to me, why is my phone acting faster? What have you done? I love what you've done to my phone. And I respond, we're not in Australia. And Mum goes, what do you mean? We're not in Australia, indicating Australia's got poor internet and it was just quicker. She was browsing Facebook and she realised how snappy her phone was. Here's the phone, the Nokia 7.1, which is a complete disaster, but it was working a lot better over there than here. Which is amazing how a lot of Asian countries have better internet than Australia. But here's some final opinions. The Australia needs fibre to each and every home, or a viable alternative. These viable alternatives can drastically improve the NBN to each user. The NBN is not good enough. And also, that Image America Online, you can actually still dial up internet on Windows 10. It's pretty amazing how you can still dial up internet on Windows 10. It's just nuts. And also, I'd like to say thank you to all. Hopefully this video is informative, maybe you learned a few new things, and if you want I can do a follow-up video if you want to learn more about this, if you want down the road. But anyway, I'm Sam, thank you for watching. Hopefully this video helped.